Okay, so next question, Lee.
Okay, this is from Noah Smitty. Uh, if she had the chance, what is the one thing she would change in the Shadowdark core book or published Cursed Scrolls?
Oh, that could name like two things.
All right.
Name two
The
things then.
first, the first one's simple. The first curse scroll, I actually finished writing before I totally finished writing the game. And I made the hex map hexes 2 miles across each when really they should have been 6. So I would change that. And then perhaps segueing out of that, I have, overland travel is always a finicky and strange thing to develop. And I think that I originally tried to stick too close to the basic expert precedent of like a bazillion random encounter checks per day and like all this. And I actually have rewritten overland travel rules for Shadowdark into an alternate version that I'm just calling hex crawling. And I'm releasing those as a part of the next Kickstarter. Because I think the Shadowdark's overland rules in the core book achieved the attempt at making a modernized version of old overland travel. But I think that if I were able to redo it from the ground up, I would strip those out and replace them with what I wrote, because what I wrote is just cleaner to handle. It's just easier to use. There's less calculation. It's a little bit more forgiving as far as an enormous number of random encounters. So yes, that's, I will probably be using these new rules for all of my future games. There's nothing wrong with using the old ones, but if I'd had more time, I probably would have replaced them wholly with the stuff I had developed recently. Yeah.
Fair point. It's hard to admit you maybe got something wrong first go round, isn't it? But at least as long as you go towards the idea of I'm going to put this right. That's perfect.
Yeah, and it's now there's just options. If people want the more grindy overland travel experience, they can use the original rules in Shadowdark. But I'm like, I'm too busy to calculate how many hexes you can go every however many days and roll all those random encounter checks. So I'm just going to use the easier version. Yeah.
Fair point. Okay, let's move to the next question then, which is me. This is by someone with a great name. Stop Claying Around.
No.
What TTRPGs or other media have had an influence on her work of late? I think you talked about this earlier. The manga you've been reading has had a bit of an influence. Yeah.
Funnily enough, it has. I think that a lot of my like adventure design ideas come from non-traditional sources. Like if I read an adventure that someone's written, no matter how good it is, I don't tend to find inspiration for my own adventure writing in there. I really have to look into like fiction and movies and comics, stuff that's not so mechanically similar to what the medium I'm writing is. But as far as like game design ideas, I mean, they come from everywhere. I think that there's so many well-written games that, and I never stop reading them. I'm always getting new game systems. And I really appreciate some of the choices that people make that have this, if you really look at it, you're like, wow, this was a deep underlying decision. This is a really woven in system someone made. So it'd be hard to say any singular source, but I'm trying to think of something I've read recently that I was like, this is such a well-designed game. It's like probably sitting out on my table somewhere. I love the new Knave. I think the new Knave is really great. Knave 2E. A lot of super fun stuff, roll tables, cool mentality in there. What else? I'm looking at my bookshelf.
See, I read Knave recently and did a video on it, and the tables drove me nuts.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
There's too many of them.
There's a lot.
There's too many of them.
Yeah. Tables are, I'm a big, I love just flipping open to tables and rolling on them for fun. I don't know if I often do it while I'm playing. I don't crack it open during the game and start rolling stuff. It's actually not that common for me. I just got it's like right here. I just got a copy of Moria for MERP, the Middle Earth role-playing system from a million years ago, because this has such a fantastic generation system in it for the mines of Moria. Like it doesn't try to give you the whole mega dungeon mine. It gives you like a bunch of really fantastic, important locations, and has a really great generation system in it for developing out all the other parts of the mines. So I was reading through it and thinking like, wow, this is so robust and like so well considered. So that was really cool. That one's a good one to check out.
I mean, it's the ultimate mega dungeon Moria, isn't it?
Yeah. It's quite the mega dungeon. Yeah.
With a Balrog in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Spoilers.
I think that's well spoiled by now, that one. Your question, Lee?
Oh, so this is another one from Stop Playing Around. Are there any kind of game mechanics she really wanted to have in the game that you just had to cut?
Oh. Not anything major. I ended up putting in small things later on into supplements I released that I was excited to make at some point, like poisons, and we mentioned mounts, boats, some weather mechanics I have in some settings, like mini settings I've released. I released them in zines called Curse Scroll zines, and they're all like the zine is a contained mini setting in an environment like the Isles of Andric is like a northern like Viking style setting. And so I've made mechanics for like weather conditions specific to those regions that I've really enjoyed. And in fact, in the Kickstarter I'm releasing, I've made a unified weather system that tries to tie those all together. And I actually really had a lot of fun developing that. And I think it came out really cool. So it's just adding on stuff that I'm like, I could use this. This would be fun to have. So I'll make something eventually for it. But right now I don't feel like anything's missing that I can think of. I'm sure I'll come up with something in a year and be like, I'm writing an entire system for building a castle, like something of that nature.
I mean, you did say earlier you'd cut out horses and boats.
Boats, yeah. I was like, we don't need these in the core rules necessarily. It's just it would have been too involved to make subsystems for them that didn't fit the ethos of the game. It's like, here's a simple unified system with very, simple distance measuring, and here's boat naval combat. It was just like, it didn't work. So
ship-to-ship combat with cannons.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, the next question was someone called Lich House, which is, what does she see as future design space? Would we get an official barbarian, druid, or warlock? How about strongholds or bastions, epic or higher level play, outer planes, etc.?
Ooh, yes. More classes. More classes are always something I'm making because I think they're such a fun way to convey world lore. I think that for me in particular, like when I'm writing a new mini setting, I want to make classes that are drawn from that mini setting and that very specifically reference the lore of that area. Like, for example, there's one I released that's called the Knight of Saint Yidris, and Saint Yidris is a actual person who you can meet who lives in this area, and he has a very interesting set of magical problems. And so I like designing classes of that nature. I am actually releasing a spell list for druids. So a wizard can have druid spells, but I didn't make a druid class because I didn't think it was needed. And I certainly see, the possibility of future supplements, like perhaps stronghold building would be a thing. It's never been a part of the game that I've been super invested into or felt that was missing from Shadowdark, because Shadowdark is pretty focused on the dungeon tier of the game. So,
I would say that any money that you've made from dungeoneering, you should be spending in the bars and pubs doing carousing. Not building a dusty old castle. What a waste of time.
I so agree. The game is designed to support that style of adventuring. And so could there be epic level Shadowdark mechanically? Yeah, I guess so, but it would be a pretty different game. It would be a different game than what's currently presented. So I'm not sure that I have major plans to do something like that right now, because it doesn't really fit within the scope of what I see Shadowdark to be.
Yeah.
It's not to say I won't. It's funny. Someone's like, are you ever going to release a world setting? And I was like, no. And then it's my next Kickstarter, the world setting. So I make no promises, but I would have to suddenly become aware of a pathway forward that made sense with what's already existing. And I don't currently see that with something like epic level play.
I don't think, having played it for a year, I don't think it's a game that would lend itself well to high level play.
Yeah,
because the levels in the book, problems are generally personal problems, but when you get beyond level 10, they become more than you. Yeah. And I think that's where high level play falls down, because then you become responsible for other things rather than just getting yourself to the next healer or, getting out the dungeon. And that's the
Right.
fun bit, really, isn't it? No one likes
Yeah.
the court intrigue necessarily for that kind of game.
Right.
You know?
Some
Yeah.
do, but it's very, I think, I remember once that I think Wizards of the Coast did a survey or something of a lot of players. And they were like, how often have you used like the stronghold style rules or had your characters build a stronghold and want to engage in like warfare and diplomacy? And it was like 2 to 3% of players. So there's a diehard contingent, but they're very hard to find,
Yeah, I think they're the exception rather than the rule, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just pick up one thing? You mentioned world setting there as well in the early part of your answer there, and obviously linking things to the world and classes. Did you ever see the Hammermancer class that somebody
I did. I love it. It's so funny because hammers are an inside joke in Shadowdark where,
Yep.
there's no hammers in the game because I took it out
No.
in the playtest from the equipment list for like various reasons. And it just became this giant joke, like hashtag Hammergate, where the hammers save the hammers. So the person who released the Hammermancer is named Cameron Moss, and he is actually the official like overland cartographer of Shadowdark. He's drawn every overland map that I've released. Like I send him this like incomprehensible pencil drawing and he turns it into like a pretty map. So he's so funny. He made that class and he drew the art for it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good class that they can summon hammers from the ether and then use them in lots of different ways, I think, if I remember rightly.
So are we talking
from like
Warhammer or just hammer like hammer?
Just
a
an ordinary. There are warhammers.
Yeah.
There's a warhammer in the game, but like just an ordinary like construction hammer is not
far from ordinary, I would say.
Right. The extraordinary rare artifact called a construction hammer is not on the equipment list. Yeah.
Because we spoke to Andy Law, who was one of the game designers for Warhammer, for 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And he said there was the long spear kept on getting accidentally removed from play. And it ended up, the final product was missing the long spear. And they wrote an entire adventure where you hunt down the long spear.
Yes. Rescue the long spear and add it back into the rules. That's funny. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so where are we up to here?
I think it's mine.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Another one from Meth1. What's her favourite gaming memory? I think you may have already answered this one. And how has that influenced her own projects? Have we already had that one?
I think it might have been a different person asking, but it might have been the same question.
What it is, every time I got a question, I just pasted these into a document.
Oh, fair. Yeah. Well,
funnily enough, every time I read that name, it kind of makes me laugh because in Liverpool, if you call someone a meth, they're a bit scruffy and a bit smelly. And they're called Meth1.
the number one, is it MEF?
MEFF.
Oh yeah, meth. Ooh, I'm learning some good slang.
Chalk and cheese and meth.
Yeah, now I've got two.
Okay, well, do you want, I'll do the next one then, just so we stay where we're up to. Okay, so this is from Prismatic Elf. Any intention of advanced Shadowdark or Shadowdarker that extends levels to 20? No request to do so, just curious.
Right. Well, that's a good question because we were just talking about the considerations for is the game even suited for that? And I don't necessarily think that the game would be improved by expanding it out to 20 levels. I think part of what I liked about the initial design when I designed Shadowdark, it's from 1st through 10th level. Wizards and spellcasters get up to they can cast wish and stuff. They can attain those high level spells. But the idea was that it's actually attainable. Like 10th level is actually attainable. It's not just something that only like 5% of groups ever get to. If you play in a weekly game, I did a bunch of math averaging and all this. And my general takeaway was that if you play in a weekly game, you'll get to 10th level after about a year of gameplay. And I mean, a weekly game is pretty frequent. I don't know if a lot of adults get to do that, so it's meant to be attainable. And I think if I blew the levels out to 20, it would just sort of hide or cloak that effect. And I don't think I need to, honestly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it needs to be said, doesn't it, Lee? We've been playing Shadowdark with Lee for a year and we're 4th level.
Well, I like that. So you're just being a little bit more careful.
We have had some weeks missing, so we've had about 40 sessions, and we tend to game for about 3 hours.
Yeah, because we end up
Right.
talking about
and
Trump normally for about 2 hours.
My players get what's the word? Digressed very easily.
Yeah.
But we have fun. That's the main thing.
Right.
I do try and not put big amounts of treasure in every room and every encounter in the dungeon.
Yeah, and that's the easiest control you have over progression then. So I like to have my groups level a bit slower than what I calculated as well, because I especially think the early levels are exciting and fun and dangerous. So yeah.
Like, for example, in AD&D, the best levels are levels 1 to 7.
Yeah, the most fun for sure.
They're always the best levels. And then once you get beyond that, it just gets more complicated and more like analysis paralysis about what you want to do. And the area levels are where it's fun and you've got nothing.
Right, and it feels special.
Yeah.
Yeah, you attain something really exciting each time you level up, and you're like, oh, finally, you third level spells, and stuff like that. So,
well, some people do. But that's a question later on. Okay, next question, Lee.
Next one. This is from Eupolemos. What? Eupolemos, if you want to say it like that. Yeah. What are the 2 things that Kelsey would wish to add to Shadowdark now that it's been out for a while?
Definitely,
2 things.
The hex crawling rules that I wrote, I'm so in love with that I'm like, yeah, I wish I could put these back into the main rules because these are what I want to use. And I think, there have been times where I have thought, should I have added more class to the main book? And then I always come back to like, no, because those are the 4 pillars of old school play, and they're meant to be a very easy, all-in-one, like, here's Shadowdark's main presentation, and then other classes you could add if you wanted, but they're kind of supplemental. So I've waffled about that, but I think mostly the only thing I would add in would be the new hex crawling rules, maybe some more robust rules for weather, because those are really fun for the game master as well, but nothing like major. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. The next question's from Misfit Banjax. Have you ever found a TV show or movie that you feel fits the Shadowdark vibe?
Ooh, I mean, yeah, as strange as it sounds, I think that the first Fellowship of the Fellowship of the Rings, Lord of the Rings movie, where it was still very like down to earth, Weathertop, like fighting off wraiths in the darkness with your torch. I mean, I think constantly about the elements of that movie. And it's funny because I don't perceive Shadowdark as like high classical fantasy. It's more grim, but I do feel that the first Fellowship of the Rings movie was very grim in a way. It was very slice of life style, struggling to just travel through the forest and not get killed by like the one undead creepy thing you find. And so I do often think about that. I think that one's thematically very inspiring. Yeah, and that would be a big one. I guess it's so funny. I really like Chinese wire movies, like kung fu movies, and as funny as it is, the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is like one of my favorite movies. And that one also carries a lot of similar vibes, I think, to Fellowship of the Rings, oddly enough. And so Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is like extremely inspiring to me in my world design and stuff like that.
That is a beautiful movie, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
Although with the hopping around the trees, fighting and all that, and all the fight scenes look so good in it as well. I mean,
you know what I learned is that all of the main performers were not actually like trained martial artists. They're all dancers, and they learned martial arts in the way that one would actually learn dancing. And so I was like, that's so interesting because they really are such fantastic. Their physicality that they have is just so incredible. So yeah.
It's good commitment to a role. That's like the Acolyte, the Star Wars TV series, which, let's be honest, sucked. I thought it was terrible.
No, I didn't see it yet. Yeah.
Oh God, it was terrible. But the main character is one of the main characters is the guy from Squid Games. You've seen Squid Games?
Oh, I really want to. I didn't see it when it was popular, and then I missed the boat. I have to see it.
We only watched it. Me and my kids and my wife only watched it recently, and we really enjoyed it. And then we only finished season 1. 2 weeks later, season 2 was out, so we kind of got to have that kind of not have to wait for a year. Yeah. But the point I'm making is he's Korean. He's South Korean. He learned English for that role.
Oh my goodness.
whole new language just so he could play that character.
What? That's commitment. That's so
is.
challenging. Yeah. Wow.
It is.
Wow.
Okay, so let's move to the next question then, Lee.
Okay. SMC in PDX asks, what were her expectations of third-party designer adoption, quantity, quality, spirit, etc., and how has the community's output measured up?
Oh, it's completely blown me away. I was just, I'd be happy if, I was hoping a few people would want to like write adventures for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I initially deeply underestimated how well the game would do, and that was part of it. But there've been I think a favorite thing for people to do is class design, and I do like seeing everybody's ideas for that. There's tons of cool classes flying around, lots of interesting takes on the same type of class. Like there's multiple barbarians out there and all that, and I like seeing what each designer wants to focus on for the class. Certainly there's very cool adventures, there's world settings. There are people who've done entire ports of like Dark Sun into a Shadowdark version, which is incredible. That one is amazing.
Shadow Sun
It is, and it's absolutely incredible. It's so well written. I was like, this is really, really well done. So those kinds of things have completely blown me away. I never expected that the community would be so excited to write for the game, and it just makes me so happy every day that we have such a big community of writers. I would like to think that someone could make a career off of writing for Shadowdark. That would be really special, and I hope that there are people who are able to do that. Yeah,
I've actually bought a few of the hardback versions.
Celtic Shadows. Oh yes, look at that. There's so many.
Again,
yeah.
And Unnatural Selection. I recently got that one. I come through
that
the post
just shipped.
recently.
Yeah.
I've not used it in the game much just yet. But one thing that I was impressed with is that people have taken the effort to create world systems. So you've got like the Shadowdark. The Dark Sun one. Yeah. There's a mothership type one that's recently been launched, isn't there, as well?
Yes.
And that looks really good. If you want a sci-fi vibe.
You just play really Mothership though, couldn't you? Mothership's pretty much already Shadowdark in space.
Maybe.
I love it. It is a great game. It's a great game.
It is. It's a cracking game, yeah.
Yes. But that one, that one's Dark Space, and it's
that Dark Space.
Yeah, it's being written by a really great team. Do you guys know the Geek Preacher?
No.
He's gonna be at GaryCon. He's a very like welcoming and open-minded preacher who kind of works in the gaming space, and he's working on Dark Space with another cool designer named Dan Gibson, who are both very like active in the old school con scene, and they're both really wonderful people, and so they've come together to work on this project, and I'm very impressed by it. It's super cool and thoughtfully designed, and you can tell they're really putting in the elbow grease.
How have they dealt with the idea of the darkness being bad for you in space where everything's dark?
Yeah, I know. I think they have like they did bring in the torch mechanic, but I think it's like, crackable glow sticks.
Oh yeah.
And I know they're talking about like possibly using like oxygen as a timed mechanic too, like your breathing tools and stuff. So they're looking at all of that, and I know it's still it's in kind of a public beta, which I think is honestly a great way to get feedback about what people want. So they're adding plenty more to it, but glow sticks that last an hour. It's a pretty clean port of a torch right there.
But is it realistic in a sci-fi setting? Really?
I don't know. Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the oxygen idea is a better one. The idea
I like that
you've got to survive.
Yeah.
But then the problem you've got is in the Shadowdark, you don't die the minute your torch goes out.
No, right? That's yeah. I mean, it's close on the heels of your torch going out. Let's be honest, but it's not immediate.
No. Well, we found out last week all our torches went out at the same time.
Oh no!
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. We went
it's not guaranteed death. It's just very hard to keep going once your torch goes out.
Yeah. They eventually got a torch lit, and then a drow priestess cast
darkness on it.
Dark on
them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sally.
Knocked it out again.
So mean. Good.
Them's the breaks, but they all survived.
Good. Well,
so far we haven't completed the adventure yet.
No promises.
No. You managed to get the drow priestess to run away though, which is good.
Oh well, that's good. We hate runners. Okay, next question. This is from Boxman214. what is the most underrated monster in the book?
Oh, it's so funny because you made me think of this with what you just said. It's absolutely dark mantles. Dark mantles can just snuff mundane or magical light immediately. And they're so dangerous. They're so dangerous. And I was laughing because I just wrote a permanent spell as an alternate spell for high level lawful wizards. It's coming out in there's going to be a new spell list coming out for each alignment for wizards in this upcoming Kickstarter. And I remember perseverating about that spell for days because I was like, oh, someone could cast permanence on a light spell. It can only affect objects. They could make a permanent torch. And I was like, am I breaking my own game? They could make a permanent torch. And then I was like, oh my God, dark mantles, you put in all this effort and you have to expend a great deal. You have to destroy a diamond in order to cast this spell and to make a permanent torch. And then like a first level dark mantle from the cave entrance flaps in and destroys it, just permanently extinguishes it. So I was like, oh, okay, this is fine.
See, I would argue, and this is just from a player's perspective, that it wouldn't be extinguished. It would just keep on burning.
Ooh, okay. There would be an argument to be had, but
burning with no light, burning but with no shed light.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you'd have a nice cooked dark mantle afterwards as well. So that cuts down on the whole provisions.
Yeah, tasty squid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Lee, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, this is from -B-.
Okay.
I wonder if there are any plans to produce the monster stats into a playing card size like our old combat cards. I would pay for that too. Thanks, Kelsey.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of you. I've thought about it. Right now it hasn't been something I've really decided to pull the trigger on because some of the monsters would be easy to format into that style, but Shadowdark also has legendary monsters like plot device style in-game monsters that have names and they're like, named beings. And it would be so difficult to turn them into a playing card style thing that I almost would feel like, well, then we would have to make it bigger than a playing card. And that wouldn't be very great because it would be all different sizes then. And then I don't want to exclude them. So I haven't really, that's where I stopped. That's where I hit a wall and I was like, I don't know how to deal with, so we haven't really pursued it much further yet. Maybe I'll come up with a solution. I don't know.
Gigantic playing cards.
Yeah. This one's a special, card sized. It wouldn't be impossible, but yeah, it's.
You need two decks, one with normal and one with legends.
Yeah, perhaps so.
Or a bigger deck maybe for legends.
Tarot sized or something. Maybe tarot sized could work. So
with a free magnifying glass included.
Exactly. Yes.
Or like those Magic the Gathering cards, which are like 4 cards, and you put them together, and they make one big card.
I didn't even think of that. That could be interesting. Yeah, or it's just like full. Instead of giving the full game text, it's just like you're gonna have to use the book, turn to page, whatever. I don't know. But
yeah,
probably a QR code printed in the corner.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. Scan it.
Okay, so next question is from Sweven Yoli. I didn't come up with these names. They're nothing to do with me. These are about people I identify. Does Shadowdark have a birthday? If so, when should we celebrate it?
Oh, here, let me look it up really quick because I can't say it has a specific birthday because I kind of just started writing notes one day and it's hard to identify the exact origin date, but I do know the day that I finished writing the book. Let me see if I can find it. And I do actually kind of celebrate that day. It's August 18th. This is the day I finished writing Shadowdark, the last monster. I finished writing the book by writing the Wandering Merchant, who's a legendary monster, and that was the last thing I added to the book, and it was done. And that was on August 18th.
So there's your answer, Sweven Lioli. It's August the 18th. Put it in your diary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cognate157 asks, are there plans for expanding the Thanian or antiquity-inspired aspect of Shadowdark's setting? I think you've sort of answered this a little bit, but go on.
Yes. Oh, I love that this person noticed that because there's a whole sort of slight dip into Greek-inspired mythology in Shadowdark, and the intro adventure for the game is that. And I would absolutely love to expand further in that way. I haven't done a lot in that direction and it's not gonna so there's nothing like that that's gonna be appearing in the Western Reaches Kickstarter. But the Western Reaches is for the western part of my game world, and there are other regions outside of that. So I'm sure that I won't be able to help but develop some further regions in the future, and maybe we'll see a Eastern Reaches that goes more into that, and it certainly would be fun to write about. Yeah.
I hope that answers it. That's fair enough. Okay, here's where they get interesting, the questions now, because there's a couple of questions from our group.
Oh.
And the first question is from Mark. Non-scalable spells. We've seen spells that affect creatures go up to level 2, which means they have a limited lifespan. So after a few levels, these spells become less useful, maybe even useless. Was making spells non-scalable an intentional choice?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Because typically there will be a more powerful spell that replaces it. And it is true that the more powerful spells will be more immediately useful to wizards. Like, for example, there's Hold Person at lower levels, and then Hold Monster at higher level and hit higher level creatures. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Hold Person will always become useless, because it's easier to cast, and most humanoid creatures that you're going to meet in day-to-day life are still low level. One thing about Shadowdark is that you like monsters like guards and everyday people don't scale up in level as you do, so they continue to be easy targets for things like Charm Person, Sleep. Like, oh, we need to sneak into the Merchant Prince's caravan, we're going to cast Sleep on all the low-level guards. So those spells eventually get replaced by more effective versions, but it's not like they're totally unneeded still. They can still be used in some ways. So yeah, that's the mentality behind it.
Okay. So the next question is also by Mark. He actually messaged me and said, can you ask her this? Go on, Lee.
So this one is, given the effort it requires to gain a level, what was the thinking behind allowing dead levels for some character classes, i.e. non-casters? So he's talking about even levels, basically.
Yes. Well, thankfully, none of the 4 core classes have dead levels. All of them will gain an incremental bonus to like weapons mastery, for example. Fighters gain a bonus to attack and damage at even levels, and then they gain a talent at odd levels.
I made that point to him.
Oh, see, there you go. But
I made that point to him.
Yeah, there's subtle gains, but I also think too that some classes I've designed that are more regional focused don't have a lot of they'll have some, I guess, dead levels where what they're getting is like a hit points increase, for instance. Those tend to be classes that have high hit points dice, so it's a significant hit point increase on average. So I think that the idea of dead levels is maybe a little bit maligned in the gaming community, because gaining a level will always gain you something. Yeah. And you need to have things to strive for. So if you get the same thing at every level, I think it makes the levels where you get something really cool feel kind of like less special. And Shadowdark assumes gear progression will happen naturally as you get more powerful. So you're going to be getting stronger magic items. There aren't really limits to the ways that you can use magic items like there are in 5th edition. So the unspoken progression that happens in lockstep with you gaining XP is that you are getting better gear over time, and that should and must improve your character. Like sometimes the gear you get is more impactful than the level gain itself. So that's the secret flip side of the coin there.
I suppose the argument against that could be that equipment can be stolen, can be taken away, but stuff you gain at a level can't.
Indeed. That's true. But it's also part of the fun, is like the potential fleetingness of your important gear and the importance of protecting it. Yeah. I think that's fun.
Yeah. Mark is playing a dwarven sea wolf, by the way. So he is quite powerful, really.
They're strong. Sea wolves are strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Wisdom is 6.
So
he's got.
Wow, that's not that high. That's not that great.
No.
Oh man, sea wolves are fun. People love them.
Yeah, we've also got a witch, haven't we? A dwarf witch.
It's a Knight of St. Idris, but they've just recently-ish had access to spells, so they've got eye bite and.
So they're a bit warlocky.
Did they choose? Oh, they chose
Acid.
a spell from that witch supplement book that I bought,
Ooh.
which is like an acid blast or acid something or other.
Oh, fun.
So that's it's a more scalable spell, so
Yeah.
that it goes up in level a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that is what prompted Mark's question about the scalable spells, because he said,
Oh.
"Well, that's much better than anything in the core rulebook." And I went, "This is a."
Yeah, it's not an official product.
I had to
is it?
justify. Yeah, I said this is a supplement, and I read through them all and thought none of these are particular. I don't think any of them particularly broken or anything. So I thought I'll give them. I'll throw them a bone, and they can have it. So
Yeah,
so we've got.
it's not going to hurt anything badly at the end of the day. That's totally fine. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is, it's going to benefit us, not the monsters, is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
2 more questions to go. Okay.
Ooh.
Okay, this question is from Lee.
Me.
Ooh.
Are there any plans for a monster manual type product to increase the pool of monsters so there isn't lots in the core rulebook?
Yes, I would love to do that. I really enjoy monster design. And there have been some people releasing excellent third-party monster things, and I'm aware of a few that are in the works right now, but I don't know if they've been announced. So there's some really great monster stuff coming and already out there. I would love to do a monster book of some kind. One of my favorite books of all time is a book by the Merry Mushman, which is like, and of course I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a monster book. And I just think that like getting to spend some time focusing on more of the lore around each monster can be very fun. And like all the monster entries in Shadowdark are generally very utilitarian. There's not a lot of like ecology or culture or society stuff. There's not a lot of that baked in because I just wanted them to be eminently flexible for the game master to do what they wanted with them. But I think it would be a hoot to write a book that had a lot more details about monsters in it. And if I can find the time, I would love to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my take on being a GM for 12 months is that there's very good core monsters in the core rule book, but there's not as much variety as I'd like. So I've had to sort of reskin them, which is always a good exercise for a GM anyway, I think.
Yeah.
But I've pulled bits from different other sources. But it would be nice to have like a larger repository to go to, which is if you go to third party stuff, it's a bit wheat and chaff, isn't it?
Sure,
Some things you look
yeah.
at and go, that's great, and you look at the next one and go, there's no way I'm having that in my game. That's
Right.
so too powerful.
It can be a little very
Yeah, so you never know what you're going to get with those sort of products, and some percentage is good, some percentage is not so good. Whereas if I would like to assume that if the Arcane Library made one, everything inside the covers would be good, and you know that it's going to be suitable straight from the off.
That's very generous of you to assume about me. Thank you. But I do think, I hope I could design a good monster for the game, because heck, if I can't, then we're in trouble. But that would be fun to do. So I'll take that as encouragement then, Lee. If I do it, it's your fault.
Oh, you're either going to be to blame or to thank, aren't you? One way or another.
Yeah,
Yes.
fine.
It'll probably be more of a thank you, honestly.
That's fine. The other thing I'd like to say is that the quote from the Tarrasque in the core book is great, by the way. I love that one.
Thank you. I think that it's become
The Tarrasque can talk.
it's the Rick roll of Shadowdark. Like,
Sort of, yeah. There's a quote.
people will say, like, I've seen people in the Facebook group or the Discord, like when someone newly enters the game, they'll do things like, oh, some of the best insight, the deep quote on page whatever, the page that Tarrasque is on. And so people will turn to that page and read the quote, and they're basically getting rickrolled. So I don't want to spoil it for people listening.
I mean, I'll show you, bud, but you don't have to put it on the podcast. Can you see there? It made me laugh out loud when I first got the book and read it. I laughed out loud when I found that,
because all the legendary monsters have a quote, and so I was like, well, I have to put one in here, So
yeah.
Okay, this is the final question. Go on, Lee. I
Okay,
think this,
so this is
I
from
think this is the best question, by the way.
Okay, so this is from Prismatic Elf again. If I tattoo the Arcane Library sigil on my hand, does that hand always roll with advantage?
Say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can you do a tattoo with a pen?
Official.
No,
yeah.
it's got to be a tattoo. It's got to be permanent.
Proper.
It has to be
Okay.
permanent. Yes, you can get it lasered off later, but you have to experience the pain in order for it to count.
Is there a size restriction as well? Are we talking an inch or
Oh,
2 inches or 4 inches?
ooh, technically, I think as long as it's visible to the naked eye and unrecognizable as a logo, I think it counts. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm almost afraid of what's going to happen now that we've said this.
Oh, you know, people
Somebody
are
will
going to do it.
do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oh, scary.
I mean, to be fair, it's a good logo, so it's fine.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a tattoo.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
symbolic. It's kind of esoteric. I really like it. I've always loved
It's
it.
a good logo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the questions we have from the internet, and I would hope there was some things there that really got tested your brain.
For sure.
Especially like the tattoo one. That's a great one. So, do you want to just before you go, we'll let you go. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the Kickstarter, the date it's going to go live, what people can expect?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks for letting me talk about this a bit. It's going live March 11th. And it's 2 books. So really it's actually 5 books. It's the Game Master's Guide to the Western Reaches, the Player's Guide to the Western Reaches. And the special thing about the Player's Guide is it's going to contain every official class I've released and some new ones I've never released. And they're all drawn from this setting. So it'll give you ways to use those characters in the Western Reaches, ways to really pin your character or anchor them to locations in the setting to give them a little bit more to build off of. And so those are the 2 books. And then I'm releasing 3 Cursed Scroll zines, which are expansions, like the mini setting versions of each region. And so I'll have 6 zines out now that each have a mini setting in them. And they each have their own cool stuff in it, but I've taken all of the stuff that can be turned into a world setting and consolidated that into the Game Master's Guide. So you've got books and zines like crazy, and it's all world setting stuff. And I'm just very excited to have them all finally out there.
Excellent. So put that in your diaries, folks. March the 11th. So I was actually going to talk to you about one. Well, actually, this is probably the last thing.
Sure.
As you probably know, I have a YouTube channel where I do book reviews.
Yes.
And I promised you I would review Shadowdark at Gen Con, which I've got there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to wait till I played it first so I could give an honest opinion on it. Now,
Yep.
are you interested in what I think so far as someone who reviews games? Okay.
I'm so scared. No, it's like a 4 out of 10.
So am I. I'm scared as well now as well.
At first, I thought it was a bit mean-spirited. Okay, but it sounds like that was by design. And then we went carousing, and then everything changed. Because suddenly you can gain XP and it opens up fun pathways. I think from what I've read so far, I haven't read the entire book yet, but I will. And I don't do reviews, I do deep dives. I do multi-part, like getting into the nitty-gritty of it. You know, I don't just do a page through and stick in a video link. I really, if anyone listening has seen my channel or anything like that, you'll know that's what I do. Like I did all of Masks of Nyarlathotep, and it was 16 videos. I went into the minutiae of every bit of each chapter, so that if you had wanted to learn it, you'd listen to the videos or watch them and understand how the adventure gets put together. Okay. I plan on doing something similar for Shadowdark, although as a read goes, it's quite an easy read. It's nice. There's lots of white space, which is appreciated, and it doesn't have the sin of old school, which is typewritten blocks of text that look, walls of text. It's nicely spaced. It's been well designed. Okay.
Thanks.
The art's nice all the way throughout as well. So when we're done playing it, which will be soon, Lee says soon, we're talking 8 weeks.
You got to kill him off, end the campaign, then he can do the review.
Yeah, they're getting close to the end of the current dungeon. So
okay.
I mean, current, we're going to do another one, are we? So
I've bought loads of little bits and bobs.
So when I'm done, I will do a breakdown, like I did for Ben. I did Knave.
Oh yeah.
I did a breakdown of that and about what I liked, what I disliked about it. So when that goes live, I will let you know, and you can post it whenever you need to. But there's something I want to talk about. Was that?
Yeah.
Tell us
Did
the
you-
story
did you
about the
notice
art.
Well, the guy, the thing on the cover, it's by this fantastic artist who was more known in like the death metal scene, named Lucas Court. It's the first piece of art, the thing on the cover that I ever commissioned from somebody, and I commissioned it like in like I think 2017. When I first kind of got into publishing, because I knew I would use it someday to write some kind of like my take on old school. I thought at first I would maybe use it to write like an old school adventure. And the Arcane Library logo is hidden in the eye of that creature, actually, and it explains the world lore, or it hints at some world lore behind what that symbol means in the world of Shadowdark. But it only implies it. And so that piece of art kind of was so cool and important to me that I actually ended up thinking, like, I can't just use this to write an adventure. It has so much lore about like my own game world in it, and it's so different from all the 5th edition looking art and work that I've done. So I just sat on it for like a few years, and it just became apparent to me that it had to be the cover of Shadowdark, because I was writing material that incorporated that piece of art into what I was doing. So there's a bunch of other pieces in the book by that artist too, but that's probably the most important piece of art in my career. That one on the cover, for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
So, I can cut this out if you want. Do you want to tell the story of who ended up with that piece of art?
I actually don't know who has it. It's a sad story because I didn't know it was for sale. So I didn't think that it was going to be something that Lucas decided to part with, but there is someone, I don't know who bought it. But they're a very kind person. Like, I've spoken with them. And I think they're coming to GaryCon, but it's kind of amazing that a piece of art that was on the cover of a book that I thought would only sell like a few hundred copies became like kind of an icon, like a little bit of a little miniature cultural icon in our tiny corner of the internet. So it's very meaningful.
It is a fantastic piece of art. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad that we finally got to do this, because I've been, I thought my franticness levels would conclude after Gen Con, but winning the Ennies changed things a lot. So like,
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
it got a little nuts again for a bit, but this has been a chat a long time in coming. So I'm so grateful that you both wrote. Thanks. And if there's anything you need, I mean, you already have the book, I guess. If there's anything else you need, just say the word and we'll get you stuff. So yeah, I don't know if,
I'm not good at asking for stuff, because what the reason being is, if I ask for it, I feel like, and then I've got to not criticize it.
I totally get it. And that's why I'm trying not to, I will only send stuff to people if they request it for that reason, because I don't want to put them in an awkward spot. Like, I don't want to be like, now you have to disclose that I gave this to you, and it creates a conflict of interest and stuff. So totally understandable if it isn't like.
I'll quite easily have a pre-release version of your Western book.
You don't even have a YouTube channel. What are you talking about?
I know. It doesn't matter.
The thing is about Shadowdark, the one you gave me that Gen Con, is I actually was going to buy it, to be fair.
I know. And then I realized in hindsight, in the like excitement of everything, I was like, oh, this would probably make it a more challenging review situation if. So I don't feel compelled to like be nice or anything, because it's your job. Don't worry, you got to maintain your credibility.
No, he's not. He's ruthless.
I don't criticize for the sake of I think is criticism I have. I give is always constructive criticism. It's never just this is shit because it's shit. Yeah.
There's a really good role-playing game called Toon, and he panned that really bad.
Terrible. I've heard of that game. I've heard people talk about that game, Toon. Like Stephen Glickers, fantastic. It's like his favorite game or something.
It's not.
Yeah.
You need help if you think that's.
Well, he does play a lot of Pathfinder 2e, so.
Oh God.
That's the kind of gamer he is. It cracks me up, but no, it's honestly, and this is a weird thing. Like, okay, if this is any consolation to you for your honesty, I hope that you never feel bad about being honest. But people who I'm very fortunate where I am in my career. I'm very, very lucky. I'm like living a dream in a way. And then because of that, it's actually hard to get honest feedback, because people don't want to offend me because they perceive me as being like, it's almost like, I think because people like like they don't want to offend me, or they don't want to be like the person who said something mean to Shadowdark Kelsey, and like they like it's hard for people to give me critical feedback now, you know, and I don't want it to be the case.
That's all I
But yeah,
do.
but I need people who will be honest with me. So it's deeply appreciated that there are folks like you who will do that, and it's needed in order to. I can't improve if I don't get genuine feedback, so I really need to work hard to seek it out because it's hard to find. It's just like to ignore it would be doing a disservice to the genre, you know? So